직원이 많이 양도 시간도 사줘야 Hi everyone, it's been about 2 days now since I've been back from Vipassana, and I did want to make, a pre-post Vipassana reflection video, so this is that. I don't really know how to structure this video or where to begin, what kinds of details to go into and to not, so I'm just going to free talk and speak what comes to mind. I will start by saying that, and I have said this to many people who've asked me how the experience was, that it honestly was the most difficult, challenging thing I've ever done in my life, period. It was harder than any hike or trek that I've done. It was more difficult than working 40 hours a week in a classroom and just suffering from immense physical exhaustion and pain. And it was mentally more difficult than just anything. Although I did go into it with very little expectations and kind of just experience it without knowing too much. I kind of wish that I'd known how physically challenging it would have been, so maybe I could have prepared myself a little bit. Regardless, I think it taught me a lot. It is a 12-day course, but the first and the last day, you don't really meditate. It's not a part of the learning process, and it's not included in that. The first day was more of like an orientation day where we got there about 1 p.m, settled into our rooms, and had like a brief orientation to how our days would be structured and what kinds of morals and conducts we are meant to uphold while we are there. And some of that included, not speaking for the entire 10 days of the course, and following the structure, waking up at 4 a.m, attending all the sessions, the meditation sessions, no lying, no stealing, eating all vegetarian food, things like that. And that I expected. I read that code of conduct several times before I went in, so I knew what to expect in terms of that. I was placed in a room with 4 other girls, and the room was on the 4th floor, so it was quite a bit of walking constantly up and down to get to different places. But the room itself was really nice, very light and open and airy, although my bed was very hard, and because of that I did not have a single night of fulfilling deep sleep. Having to wake up at 4 a.m. each morning, having gotten no sleep that previous night. And so my morning meditations would always involve me just falling asleep instead of meditating. And my roommates were great. It was very comfortable to be in that space with them. We spoke briefly before we went into complete silence mode, and then we spoke a lot on the 7th day and a little bit on the 8th day, even though we weren't supposed to. And then, of course, on the 10th day. And we all really connected. So I'm really grateful that I was able to share a room and that experience with such great people. The food was all vegetarian. It was great. I'm so grateful for the food and just how much there was and how healthy and nutritious it was. Although perhaps because of the schedule and the timing, or because in the evenings we wouldn't eat a lot, I was a bit constipated and kind of bloated sometimes, because I would eat the freshly made bread that they put spices in, and I'd drink the milk tea, and these are things that I know give me bloating, but I'd still eat them anyways, at least initially out of excitement, and then suffer through like gas and bloating while meditating, and that would take away all my concentration. So for the first few days, I was just kind of getting used to the routine and knowing, okay, maybe these are things I should do. These are things that I perhaps should try to control and not do. So food and just being very picky and selective and trying not to overeat was one of them. As for the schedule, so we had to wake up at 4 a.m. each morning, or at least the bells would start ringing at 4. I think they rang for about 5 to 7 times. And so within that time, you get up, you make your bed, you freshen up if you want to, you you know, just get up, you wake up, you get ready for the day. And then at around 4:20, a few more bells ring, and that's to kind of get you prepared into going into like that a really huge meditation hall where there were about 200 of us in total, about 100 females and 100 males. It's a really huge hall, and I was amazed by the amount of people that were there. It felt like such a big experience that we were all sharing. So we would go to that hall by 4:30, and we would meditate for 2 hours up until 6:30. 6:30 we had breakfast, and then after you finish breakfast you just rest for a bit, and then at 8 again, from 8 to 9 you do a 1 hour of meditating, 5-minute break. From 9 to 11 again meditating, although during that time the teachers would allow us to meditate in our rooms as well, and we didn't necessarily have to stay in the hall, which I am so thankful for. Honestly, I would always anticipate while sitting in the hall, I hope they let us go, I hope they let us go, please, I want to go into my room, please. Because yeah, I really struggled physically to just sit down. I experienced a lot of back pain initially, and you know, trying to figure out what posture works for me and what doesn't. Knee pain as well. I already, you know, because of my lupus, I have a lot of knee and joint issues already, so that exacerbated it so much. The first few days I was changing positions in an hour about 10 times at least. You know, I just didn't know what worked and what didn't. There was the option of asking for like back rest and sitting on a chair instead of sitting down on the floor and on the cushion itself, but I was kind of stubborn. I told myself, no, since I'm here, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to try to figure out a way to get through these 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour long sessions sitting down properly. I did rely on just one cushion and sat on it, which helped a lot. But I think the next time that I go, I'll definitely ask for like a seat or a backrest, because I think the physical challenge definitely made it more difficult for me to concentrate on the technique itself. Yeah, I always looked forward to going into my room and on my bed and, you know, just leaning against the walls, spreading out my legs and really trying to focus on meditation. Although sometimes even then I would feel drowsy and start falling asleep. Another thing I really enjoyed being in that room was that it's rainy season right now here in Nepal, and up there, like near the forest, and at a higher altitude, slightly higher altitude, it rained a lot. It rained a lot, and it rained heavily, thunderously. It would crash down on the roofs and we would hear it. And it was just such, like, I get goosebumps even like thinking about those moments where I'm sitting in my room or in that hall and it's raining so heavily and you hear it, and it's so soothing and so otherworldly, such a surreal experience. And I was able to experience that countless times while I was there. So yeah, I appreciated things like that, being closer to nature, hearing the birds chirping, the rain, the wind, the fresh food, the water. These are all things that were just amazing. They really enriched the whole entire experience. At 11, the bell would ring and we would go to eat lunch. Again, I always looked forward to the lunch because it would be rice and 3 different varieties of vegetables and some type of pickle or chutney, lentils, and you could go for seconds. Initially, I would take 2 scoops of rice and eat a lot because I was hungry and I was like, oh, this food is so good. I need the energy to meditate. But I think it made it more difficult for me to meditate. I realized that after a few days, and so I would take just, you know, as much as I needed. And then, yeah, that was enough. So we would have lunch break from 11 to 1. After eating lunch, most women would like do their laundry, hand wash their clothes, dry them, just sunbathe if the sun's out, you know, take showers and things like that. Some of us would just nap and catch up on some sleep. I kind of, most of the time, just felt really aimless and I didn't know what to do. I'd taken enough clothes, so I didn't really need to do any laundry. Sometimes I would take a nap, but after having eaten, I didn't really want to sleep right away, so I'd just be sitting in my room staring off into space and thinking, or wandering around outside and just looking at others and observing others, and although you can't really make eye contact, just you get curious about what other people are doing, because you don't know, right? You're not able to communicate to them and ask them, how's the experience for you? How do you feel? How was this day? Are you able to do this? Are you able to do that? You can't do any of that. So a lot of the times I was just in my own head, experiencing everything just on my own. Around 12:50 the bell would ring, and then we would go back into the meditation hall again. From 1 to 2:30 we would meditate as a group, and then have a 5-minute break, 2:30 to 3:30 1-hour meditation, and then another break, and then from 3:30 to 5 we could either meditate in the hall or go into our rooms. We would have dinners at 5, so very early, very early. We would have finished eating by 5:30, and then from 6 to 7 we would meditate again, 1 full hour, have a 5-minute break, and then from 7 to around 8:15, sometimes 8:30 there would be a discourse. We would sit in different halls based on our language preferences and watch videos that were more theoretical in nature, and we would learn about the history of vipassana, the practice itself, where it comes from. Yeah, I learned a lot during those discourses, even though it was just sitting and watching someone speak to us and tell us about different things. I really enjoyed the allegories and the metaphors and the humor that were in those videos, the non-sectarian, the scientific aspects, the universal aspects, and the different ways that it connects to our life and the different ways that we can apply it out in the real world. I look forward to those evenings where we wouldn't have to meditate and we could just listen to someone talk and learn about what we were doing and how to do it better. And then from around 8:45 to 9 we would meditate. Sometimes some of our discourses would finish earlier than the others, so we would have to wait until everyone was on the same page. And then at 9 we were let go and we could head to our rooms to start getting ready to sleep, or stay back for 30 minutes to ask questions to our teachers. That was the schedule, and that was pretty much the schedule the entire time, with the exception of the 1st and the 9th and the 10th day. It was very consistent, very disciplined, very structured. I didn't really rely on a clock or a time too much. The bells would kind of dictate when and at what time I did things. What we were taught for the first 3.5 days is to just focus on this area. And all we did for those 3.5 days, every single hour we sat down and meditated, is bring our attention to that area and to observe the senses that we feel. So especially our breath and the different sensations that we have in this area. So you'd start off from a larger area and slowly start bringing your attention to a smaller, to the point where you really begin to feel very minute and subtle sensations that you wouldn't otherwise. What that taught us was, one, not just to be aware and to just be present and focus on what actually is, but also it was kind of like a prerequisite, and it prepared us for the rest of the days and for the actual technique of vipassana. It sounds easy, right? To just sit there and to just breathe in, breathe out, focus on your breath, feel the sensations. It sounds so easy, but it is so hard. Getting your mind to constantly come back here. Honestly, I think I kind of thought about every single major event in my life, every single major person in my life, experience that I've had in those 10 days, my past, everything. But in those moments where I could just focus on my breath and feel those sensations, they were amazing. After this 3.5 days, then we were taught vipassana. And vipassana is essentially learning to feel the sensations in not just this part, but in every part of your body, from head to toe. And when you do focus on something like that for such a long period of time, you really begin to feel like the smallest sensations. And there are many different kinds of sensations that happen in your body. They are sensations that feel good, there are sensations that feel bad, but vipassana teaches you to kind of remain partial to those sensations and to not associate any negative connotation or feeling to any particular sensation. So for example, while I was sitting there, I was experiencing a lot of knee pain and back pain, And constantly, initially, my mind would go back to that pain and think about, oh, this is making my life so hard. Why does that have to pain? Why does that pain have to be there? It hurts. It hurts. It's so difficult. I wish it would go away. So that was me the first 3 days, right? And on the 4th day, I reached a breaking point because I had a knot in my back that was just would not go away. I don't know where it came from. It was just not letting me focus on feeling the sensations in other parts of my body. So I got really frustrated at one point, and I cried a little bit. I was thinking about what an idiotic thing this was to do, to come here for 10 days instead of spending time with my family and my friends, and just feeling so much torture in this, because honestly at times it did feel like torture. And it's not supposed to. That's the whole point of it, to not make it torturous for yourself by remaining partial to the sensations. So in that moment when I was experiencing that knot below my shoulder, I cried, I took a few deep breaths, and then I sat myself upright. And although the pain got much worse, I focused on it. I focused on it for a few minutes, and after a while it started becoming really numb, and I could feel vibrations rather than pain. And inside my head, I had a very, very unique, otherworldly experience where I just kind of saw my body split into two. I know it sounds very bizarre and weird, but I saw my body split into two, and like there was a shell coming out where the inner part of me was just full of like vibrations and numbness and tingled everywhere. And on the outer shell at a distance, I could feel the pain, but at a distance. So that was a very unique experience. I wasn't trying to I'm not trying to put too much meaning into it, but the whole point of vipassana is to kind of remain equanimous to those sensations, so that yes, you are more aware of the things that go on in your body, but also out there in the world when you are dealing with different situations and different kinds of people, you don't react as easily to the negative things that come up, or you don't even start to crave things too much, because regardless of what sensation you're experiencing, you're treating it very impartially. Craving and aversion were the two ends of the spectrum that we were taught to kind of, stay equanimous to. After that experience, actually, it became easier for me to then meditate despite the pain. I experienced pain, knee pain, back pain for the rest of the time there, but it became so much easier for me to continue meditating and continue to focus on my awareness and the sensations in the different parts of my body, because that in that moment I taught myself really to kind of not tie that negative mental connotation to that pain. And I know it's hard. Pain is pain. It hurts, right? But once you really train your mind to see that pain as something that just comes and goes, it becomes less of a problem and it becomes less painful. So this was a huge takeaway for me. The word anicca, that things are constantly changing, nothing ever lasts. The idea of impermanence, alongside all the theoretical things that we were told about in the discourse, and just it validated a lot of the experience that I've been having, but also the whole entire concept and practice of vipassana. It just resonated with me and the life that I was already trying to live. I really appreciated that we were all allowed to kind of just learn the technique at our own pace in a way. We weren't rushed. We weren't told, okay, by this day you have to have reached this point. No. It was differentiated. It was done at a pace where everyone's experiences were validated, and there was a lot of reassurance given to us that just because you're not feeling the same things as someone else doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. I don't consider myself a religious person, but I am spiritual. I like to question things. From vipassana, I just learned that all the answers I'm really looking for are within myself, and that if I really want to live a life that is fulfilling and meaningful, this technique can really help me to do that. We watched a documentary on our 9th day there about how vipassana was implemented in some prisons in India. and included as a way of reformation for prisoners, and just the kind of benefits that it had on them. I learned that willpower is everything. You are always so much more capable than you think. It's not a technique that, you learn in 10 days, you do it for 10 days and immediately you're going to see the effects of it, but it gives you such great tools, I think, for you to use in your life to navigate it. And if one does it consistently, one can see the long-term benefits of it. So at the end of the day, it's completely up to me how consistent I am in this and how much benefit I can get out of it. And I hope that I can be consistent with it. I know that I won't be able to do 2 hours morning and night of meditation with the schedule that I have back in Tokyo, but I want to be able to do at least 1 hour. And honestly, just even saying that, the fact that I can now meditate for 1 continuous hour, sitting down without having to change my posture 10 times. Now I only do it once. And that's been like a huge accomplishment for me. Such progress. And it only happened because I trained my mind to not be so reactive to the pain and the sensations that I was experiencing. But also, I pushed myself, I worked hard, I really tried to take it seriously. And I'm so glad I went. As challenging as it was, and as excruciating as the pain was, it was all worth it in the end, and I can only see positives in it. Obviously, not everyone's going to have the same experience. There were several people who left in the middle of the course because they didn't like the food or because it was too difficult for them physically, mentally. So, and there were even some people complaining about certain things. It is really what you make of it. And if you see it positively and you only take what you can from it and what can help you, then I don't see why it would be a bad thing in any way. I think that's what you do with anything in life, right? You experience it for yourself and you take away what you can from it and what can help you in your life. I hope that I can be consistent with meditating now, and I look forward to seeing how the technique itself and the practice of meditation and the practice of vipassana will help me in the long run, with my health, with my teaching in the classroom, and just my overall outlook on life, as well as my spiritual journey. So yeah, I'm not sure I said everything I wanted to say, but that's mainly it. I really recommend everyone to try it once. I think if something like this were implemented in every school, in every part of the world, from a certain age, people would really just be so much more self-aware, and the world would be a much better place. And of course, not everyone has the privilege to do that or even to think about things like that. But yeah, if you do and if you can, then why not? Thanks for listening to my post-vipassana experience video. I'd love to answer more specific questions if you have any. And yeah, of course, things that I experienced, then there was so much more that I didn't include in this video, but I don't want to tell it all and to ruin the experience for anyone who does decide to go. But if you do, I hope you can make the most out of it. And it will be difficult, it will be really hard. You do have to push yourself. But again, there is nothing you can't do if you have the willpower. In saying that, I'm actually going to get a tattoo on my wrist of a word that we were taught in this course. It relates to a phrase that I've constantly been using in my life to move through more difficult and more challenging experiences, that change is the only constant. This idea of impermanence, that nothing lasts, and that things are constantly changing. So thanks again, and my next video will be a book review.